How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Black Metal Rebellion. I'm your host, Jesse Morgan, and today I'm here to talk about a album by Malsumis called Spirit of Decay. This is going to be my review of said album. Now, if you don't know who Malsumis is, they are an atmospheric black metal band from Anchorage, Alaska. Yeah, they make black metal up in Alaska. Pretty awesome. Now, little is known about the members involved in this band. Everywhere I've checked, from their Metal Archives page to their Bandcamp, hasn't listed anything regarding the members or the names or who's involved or how many members they even have. So they're a very mysterious band. So unfortunately I can't give you any information there. However, I can tell you about the music because I've listened to it countless times. I did buy this album. The guys at Lycan something Records sent me this. They sent it to me for the shipment payment fee, and that was it, which was really nice. Came on this red cassette. And I got number 20 of 100, which is a nice low number. It's pretty sweet, and I've listened to this I've got to have listened to this at least 30 times already. Now, the vocals had a mix of low and highs. The highs were kind of like a mid-high, though. It wasn't like a high. It wasn't like Danny Filth high. Thank God. The lows were kind of like this airy, kind of exhaled type of low with slight raspiness to it. The highs were kind of like these gravelly mid-tone things with some reverb on them. The vocals themselves were kind of just above mid-mix, kind of like a tad higher than the guitars. They were performed well and consistent, though. I think I enjoyed the highs a little bit more than the lows. Every now and then, depending on what song you listen to, there was a very small amount of shouts in there. I believe there were some in the second song and maybe the third song, that being Frostborn and Descent. Now, for the guitars, they were tuned lower than E standard, I believe. It definitely had a grim tone to them. They were very dark. Some riffs had a very kind of Amon Amarth or Enslaved feel to them. Quite heavy, almost like a death metal feel to the guitars. The riffs were definitely kept in the lower range. There was the odd kind of like higher stuff, but it was like more of a mid-range part on the guitar. There was tremolos, there's dissonant riffs, kind of the odd string skipping riffs, but there wasn't too much of those. Really good. The guitarist definitely wasn't short of riffs or short of any tricks up his sleeve, that's for sure. Definitely impressed by the guitaring. The bass in this was pretty decent. I gotta say, it was low in the mix, but it was detectable once you kind of discovered what you were hearing. As for me, if you've seen any of my reviews, you'll know that I have trouble kind of picking out where the bass is, if there is any, and what it's doing. But this one, once I picked it up, I was able to follow it and figure out what's going on. It was really good. It gave a huge low end to the whole mix in general. The riffs were kept in the lower range as well. There wasn't too much high stuff. There was kind of like a back and forth between following the guitar and kind of adding its own flavor to it. Definitely did a great job once again. It had a claustrophobic and suffocating weight and atmosphere to the bass riffs, and it kind of just added to the entire track that kind of feel too. You would notice more of its presence in songs like the Untitled track for sure, which is a instrumental where it's more prominent and very noticeable there. It's also pretty noticeable in certain parts of the third track called Descent. If the bass was not in this, and you heard it without it, you'd notice. Like, the bass is definitely a key element to this band and release. The drums was definitely a real kit. Pretty unique sound to it. I don't know if it was like how he tuned the drums or what size of drums he used. That being the size of the snare shell or the toms or stuff like that. But it was definitely unique sounding. It had a lower tuned snare, and I'm not sure if it was open or not. I think it might have been just slightly open. It didn't sound like the one from fucking Saint Anger, but it was definitely like a more meaty sounding snare, which is a weird way to describe it, but it was definitely not your normal snap, 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 snap kind of snare. That's for sure. The drummer had a very good use of blast beats and double kicks, as you would expect in black metal. The hi-hat, I noticed, was very splashy. It was like psh, 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 as opposed to like the ch, 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 ch. And terrible audio description, but if you hear it, you'll know what I mean. It wasn't just like your typical kind of hi-hat sound, and there's a very noticeable ride ticks and like clicks and tings off of the ride, so they mic'd that up pretty good. The fills were also really good tom usage, really quick and like accurate sounding too. I gotta give that guy props for that drumming and those fills. And he didn't seem to want to leave like any empty spots in the music. It was always going. There's always something being thrown in there. Like for like a split second, you might hear him like die down to like a snare and a hi-hat for a second, but then it's right back into the cymbals and toms and like just building the atmosphere. I think that's definitely what these guys are going for. Now, my favorite tracks on this album was definitely the last track, number 6, and that's Abyssal. There's some very unique guitar riffs in there, some very cool vocal techniques. There's still the lows and the highs, or mid-tone highs that was in there, but it's just a different way of implementing them that I enjoyed in that song. The next was, I have it listed here, my second favorite song here is Descent, but I think I'm actually going to have to go with Frostborn, the second song. Frostborn was actually really good, really heavy, just surprisingly crushing for black metal. Like it was really good. They had some kind of interesting shouts in there too, not just like the low growls or the mid-tone high. There's also like some shout kind of vocals in there, so it spiced it up a bit. And I think I'm going to list The Descent, the third track, as my third favorite on here. It was the one where I just started picking up on what the bass was doing. I really found what the bass was doing in that track to be pretty interesting and pretty cool, I gotta say. So kudos to the bass player in this, kudos to the drummer. The guitarist definitely wasn't lacking on riffs, and the vocalist definitely had a few things to present himself. So my overall thoughts on this was it was a very dark and crushing album for sure. Just a thick wall of atmosphere. Like I said, claustrophobic, suffocating, but in the best way possible. It was just a lot to take in, but it's... And once again, I just mean this in the best way. There's just so much like heaviness and weight to this, considering it's black metal, and it had a shocking kind of low end for black metal. Like a lot of black metal you listen to is more like trebles and mids and highs and stuff like that. This just kind of like was in that pocket of just low. Like it was like a fog, like a thick fog, just instead of being up in like clouds in the sky, like right on the ground, and like that's how I describe how this album felt. It felt like the clouds were just right low and thick near the ground type of feel for atmosphere, a cross between kind of like Cav and Areopagus, sort of, if you can get like a feel between those two bands. And but it's still very unique. It has its own unique feel, but those are the closest things I can kind of give you if you've listened to those bands prior to this. For something that sounds like kind of like a Black and Death feel, it blows the new Behemoth out of the fucking water. Like, I would buy Spirit Decay 9 times out of 10 instead of the Satanist. Like, this is great stuff. Definitely, also, that's kind of a warning. Do not listen to this album by yourself in the dark because this is going to give you all kinds of heebie-jeebies, like just the atmosphere and feeling that this invokes just by listening to it. Maybe that's what you're into though. So if you're looking to get creeped out and just get the fucking heebie-jeebies, then by all means listen to this in the dark by yourself. And once again, I am Jesse Morgan, and I did buy this album, and I recommend you at least check it out. I'm going to be providing the Bandcamp link in the bottom description below, and you can decide for yourself whether it's worthy of purchasing. Hope you do, because they could definitely use the support. They're a really great band, definitely underrated. I don't think I've heard anyone else talk of them. For glory, for the rebellion, Slammerella out.